Okay, let me ask you this. What if you were asked, truly asked, to just abandon your comfort zone? I mean, everything, your job, your neighborhood, the life you know, and go somewhere totally new just to share a message. Well, that kind of radical life-changing shift, it actually happened back in the first century. We read about it in Acts chapter 13. And honestly, it fundamentally changed the entire trajectory of global history. So today, we're doing a Bible discussion focusing right in on that pivotal moment. The moment the early church went from being, a local community to a global sending church, launching Paul and Barnabas out into the Roman world. And look, this wasn't just some short-term mission trip. This was basically the birth certificate of the universal Christian movement.
It really is. You could argue it's one of the most critical turning points in the entire New Testament story. And for you listening, our mission today, if you will, is to show clearly why the call these two men received back then, well, why it provides such a profound and, frankly, challenging blueprint for your own life, for active obedience, for discovering your own calling right now.
Okay, let's unpack that. And I think we need to start by setting the scene, right? Geographically, socially. Because where this world-changing mission kicked off is, in itself, kind of a surprise. It didn't start in Jerusalem, the spiritual heartland. It started way up north, in Antioch.
Exactly. And Antioch is the first big, moment here. This wasn't some quiet, devout, religious town. Antioch was massive, a bustling, incredibly diverse metropolis. Think third largest city in the whole Roman Empire after Rome and Alexandria. Just a swirling mix of cultures, languages, religions, heavily Gentile.
That's the key word, isn't it? Diverse. Antioch was a melting pot. It was probably messy, definitely vibrant, just completely different from the more traditional Jewish setting of Jerusalem. And this is the place God chose. This complex, maybe even chaotic urban center became the launch pad for a global mission.
And that diversity wasn't just the city, it was baked right into the church's leadership team. Acts 13, verse 1 lists them out. And this is where you really see the richness of it. You've got Barnabas. Okay, he's a Jewish guy from Cyprus, known for being generous. We know him. But then look who else is there. Simeon, called Niger. That name strongly suggests he was African. You have Lucius from Cyrene, that's North Africa too.
And then there's Manaen. Get the text says he was brought up with Herod the Tetrarch. So this guy had real connections to royalty, maybe even grew up in the palace circles.
Yeah.
Tied into the political elite.
Right. And finally, Saul, the man who, not that long ago, was breathing threats, persecuting this very faith, locking people up, maybe worse.
Just pause and think about that group for a second. North Africans, someone with royal ties, a former persecutor, a Jewish guy from an island, all leading together. This wasn't just ticking diversity boxes. This was smashing through class barriers, ethnic lines, past histories. It was like a living, breathing model of the gospel's universal reach before they even sent anyone out.
It's such powerful evidence, isn't it? That the place God chose to launch this global thing was deliberately not some homogenous, safe, predictable base. That their very existence together as leaders was a statement about what the gospel does.
That's a really profound insight. The mission was kind of lived out inside the church first before they exported it. But okay, before they actually packed their bags, they did something else, something crucial.
Yes. And this takes us straight to the second big truth in this passage, this whole missionary call. It was fundamentally spiritual, not corporate. It didn't come from like a strategic planning meeting or someone's great idea.
I wonder, though, I mean, they're in Antioch, right? A major hub, commerce, politics, travel. Wouldn't common sense suggest, mapping it all out? A 5-year plan? Why just prayer and fasting? Seems a bit passive, maybe?
That's a fair question, and it touches on spiritual authority versus, let's say, human management. If they'd relied only on human wisdom, where would they have aimed? Probably Rome, maybe Alexandria, the big power centers. But the text makes it super clear. They weren't creating the plan. They were waiting for the directive. They were operating from a place of spiritual dependence, not, business school principles.
And that direction, when it came, was crystal clear. Acts 13.2. We really can't just skim over this verse. It says, while they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I have called them. Wow. Direct instruction. God telling them his plan.
And that phrase, set apart, it's so important. We often think of set apart as just for full-time pastors or missionaries, but think about what it meant for them right then. Paul or Saul, still in Barnabas, they were already key leaders. They were busy preaching, teaching, serving right there in Antioch.
So the call wasn't just to do ministry work in general. It was a call to a specific targeted mission, one that meant they actually had to leave their current, probably successful ministry roles. That's a radical realignment.
Precisely. The difference is that focused, outward-bound mandate, being set apart for this work, meant shifting from building up the Antioch church to planting new ones somewhere else entirely.
Okay, so if we connect that to us listening today, it suggests every believer is set apart in a general sense, maybe. But there might also be these specific focus callings the Spirit prompts us towards. And for them, the proof was in the pudding, right? Instant obedience. They didn't form a subcommittee to study the feasibility.
Exactly. Their immediate response just shouts that obedience is what follows being set apart spiritually. So the question for you, listening, becomes, are you ready to realign? It might not be moving countries. It might be a shift in focus at work or school or in your neighborhood. But are you ready when the Spirit makes that directive clear?
Okay, so the call comes, the church lays hands on them, confirming it, sending them off, and the first journey starts. They're sent by the Spirit in the church. Let's talk about where they went first and, well, their initial approach.
First stop, Cyprus. Now, this wasn't just sticking a pin in a map. It was Barnabas's home turf, his home island, which makes sense, right? You often start where you have some connection, maybe a network. It gives you a foothold.
But it wasn't just sentimental choosing Cyprus, was it? There was strategy involved, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cyprus was strategically brilliant. Geopolitically, it was a major crossroads in the Eastern Mediterranean. Trade routes, Roman administration. It made it a perfect gateway, you could say, into the Gentile world before they pushed deeper into Asia Minor. Plus, it was spiritually, well, complex. Roman influence, local pagan traditions. They were guaranteed to interact with significant people.
And their initial method, once they got there.
They went to the synagogues first. That was their standard approach, really. Proclaim Jesus as the Messiah to the Jewish communities, reasoning from the scriptures they already knew. And then, naturally, interested Gentiles who were associated with the synagogue would hear it too. But this is also where we start seeing a subtle shift, a really important one, actually, in the leadership dynamic.
Ah, yes. The Saul to Paul transition isn't just a name change, is it? He starts taking point more, speaking out more boldly.
It's incredibly significant. Barnabas, remember, he was the established leader from Antioch, the son of encouragement. He seems to naturally, graciously step more into a supporting role. And Saul, the former persecutor, emerges as Paul, the apostle destined primarily for the Gentiles. Maybe Paul's particular background, his sharp theological mind, his assertiveness was just better suited for the challenges of the Roman world they were entering. And Barnabas letting that happen, that just shows incredible humility and partnership for the bigger mission.
Okay, so they're making inroads in Cyprus. They reach Paphos, the capital. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn, right? Because whenever the gospel advances with real power, you can pretty much expect pushback. Their mission hits a major roadblock, a spiritual one.
Yes, it comes in the form of a specific person, Bar Jesus, also called Elymas. Now, this guy wasn't just some sideshow magician. The text calls him a Jewish sorcerer and a false prophet. And crucially, he had managed to get himself into the inner circle of the top Roman official on the island.
Right, and why is he so central here? Because he's actively trying to stop someone really important from hearing the message. That's Sergius Paulus, the Roman proconsul. The governor, basically.
It is absolutely a clash of kingdoms playing out right there. You have the gospel carried by Paul and Barnabas reaching the highest level of Roman authority on the island. And immediately, this opposing spiritual influence, embodied by Elymas, steps in to try and block it. He's actively trying to turn the proconsul away from the faith, twisting the truth, creating distractions.
You know, that's such a relevant picture for us listening today. Think about it. When you feel you're close to a spiritual breakthrough, or maybe someone you know is getting closer to understanding the truth, doesn't it often seem like distractions, confusion, or some kind of spiritual resistance just pops up out of nowhere?
It really does, and Paul's response to Elymas is, well, it's intense. The text specifically says Paul was filled with the Holy Spirit for this confrontation. That's key. He's not acting on his own frustration. And he doesn't engage in some polite philosophical debate.
No, he uses incredibly direct, almost harsh language. What exactly does he call Elymas?
Paul looks straight at him and calls him a child of the devil, an enemy of everything that is right, and accuses him of making crooked the straight paths of the Lord. This shows Paul instantly recognized this wasn't just a difference of opinion or a political maneuver. This was a direct spiritual battle, and it required invoking God's authority and power visibly.
That intensity really underscores the stakes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Paul wasn't just arguing with a man, he was confronting the spiritual power behind the deception.
Absolutely. The Spirit gave him both the boldness and the exact words needed to cut through that spiritual interference. And this leads directly to the climax, the moment of victory.
Yeah, it's incredibly dramatic. It happens instantly. Paul basically pronounces a temporary judgment. He declares Ananias will be blind for a time, and right then the text says mist and darkness fall over him. He's left stumbling around, looking for someone to lead him by the hand, helpless.
And that visible, undeniable, immediate miracle, it does the job. Sergius Paulus, the Roman proconsul, sees this happen and he is utterly astonished. But notice the crucial detail Luke includes. He was amazed at the miracle, yes, but he believed because of the teaching about the Lord. It was the power validating the message. The combination brought about his conversion.
And we really can't overestimate how huge that conversion was. The gospel message just jumped from the synagogue into the governor's headquarters, into the halls of Roman power. This mission, confirmed by God's power in such a dramatic way, now had an influential Roman official who believed. It felt almost unstoppable after that.
So, if we just step back and look at this whole slice of Acts 13, what are the core takeaways? The lessons that jump out for your life today? First, clearly, mission starts with God's initiative, sought through prayer, not just human planning. The directive comes first. Second, it demands immediate radical obedience, even if that means leaving something good, like Paul and Barnabas did in Antioch.
Okay. Third, opposition is basically guaranteed, isn't it? It's part of the process when the gospel advances. So don't be shocked when roadblocks appear. And fourth, mission empowered by the Spirit ultimately leads to victory because he provides the authority and the power needed to overcome those obstacles.
And maybe one more layer of application, thinking back to Antioch's leadership. Remember that diversity. If your team, your church, your small group, if it's pretty much all the same kind of people, maybe your primary calling is very local. That's vital work too. But if your community reflects the diversity of the wider world, maybe your mission needs to reflect that too, looking outwards.
That's a really challenging thought. And thinking about Elymas again, mission isn't always just about sharing nice, encouraging words. Sometimes it involves confronting deception, speaking truth even when it's uncomfortable, right? Like you said, you might not be called to cross an ocean, but you are set apart, maybe to cross the street to a neighbor, maybe to engage in those slightly awkward conversations at work, to pray for specific breakthroughs, to speak up when the Spirit prompts.
Exactly. Mission involves both sides. That yielded waiting on God through prayer and fasting, but also that necessary confrontation, calling out darkness when you see it. That's really what being set apart for God's work looks like, right where you are.
Wow. What an incredible story, packed into just a few verses. Think about it. What started with a diverse church leadership team praying and obeying in Antioch, it literally spread the gospel like wildfire through the ancient world. It proves that the biggest movements often start with the simple, radical obedience of a few. And somehow, we're all part of that ripple effect today.
And maybe, here's a final thought, something for you to really chew on. If that church in Antioch hadn't prioritized prayer over just making plans, and if Paul and Barnabas hadn't said yes to that specific, probably scary calling, history would look completely different. So the question flips back to you. What ripple effect will your obedience start?
That is definitely a challenging and inspiring thought to leave things on. If you want to follow Paul's journey and see how this gospel continues to spread and face challenges across the Mediterranean, well, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and definitely ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next discussion.
And hey, drop us a comment below. What was it about that diverse leadership team in Antioch that struck you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts.